Welcome back to FreightWaves Now on this Thursday morning. It's time to welcome yesterday's keynote speaker and president of the TIA, Anne Reinke, to the show. And thank you for joining us this morning. It's great to have you as always.
Good morning. I hope the rest of your summit went well. I was honored to be your keynote speaker.
It was pretty great as far as virtual events go.
I'm here with two celebrities. You both were co-keynotes or something.
Don't get starstruck now, Michael. Don't get starstruck.
I'm a little nervous. I have to admit. But it was really a great interview, and it really brought to light, in my opinion, something that many people like myself go, yeah, no kidding. But it is the intermediary and the struggles. You've got two different customers that you've got to deal with, and then you've got stakeholders and shareholders as well that you've got to deal with as well. So it's not an easy thing to be an intermediary, especially in the logistics business.
I'll just agree with you. The struggle is real. Yes, thank you. We do have to use a lot of folks on both ends of the supply chain, so to speak. And, as you know, and you've been talking about it, I imagine yesterday and all morning, is that we have these additional pressures now in terms of the inflation rate being above 7.5%. And the fuel is so volatile that last week it increased 75 cents, as you know, in 1 week. This week it has not increased as sharply because of the Chinese lockdowns, et cetera, but it still has a kind of a longer time horizon to go back down. And so what our guys are dealing with is how do they even keep up with fuel surcharges when the rates are fluctuating on fuel as quickly as they are?
Absolutely, and it's really this kind of juggling like 7 different balls in the air at once, right? You've got these fuel surcharges, you're juggling with inflation, and now you're trying to keep your shipper happy and keep your carrier happy while also still trying to make some sort of margin on this so you're not doing this for nothing. Can you talk a little bit about any strategies that you have right now where you can employ like kind of this balancing act of making everybody happy, if there's even a strategy to make that happen right now?
Yeah, making everyone happy is a tough one, but yes, we try. I think the best way to do it is through communication, trying to get the best data you can, trying to keep up with as much information from you all, from all the other outlets out there about what exactly is happening both nationally and regionally. Because as you know, there are regional differences too. Some markets, the fluctuations are even sharper. In some markets, they are not. So it's communication with all the folks on, again, both sides of the transaction, and continual data refresh.
There's also a lot of strategy, not only keeping everybody happy, right, in these times, and letting people understand where these costs are coming from, right? Sometimes you got to raise your costs, lower your costs, et cetera. But one thing that people don't really understand is the intermediary in the middle is trying to keep that cost down for their customers, right, and trying to get that pay up for their other customers at the same time. So as these things go up and down, boy, if you don't have a great strategy, your margins are just out of control, and you can't plan for anything. Your working capital can get sucked dry just like that if you don't have the right financial systems running. How do they deal with that type of stuff?
Well, you have to have smart people, I'd say first. You have to have smart people around you. And I think, too, you have to have the best data analysis and technology that you can possibly use. Because to your point, there is so much change. What have we learned over the last 2 years? That nothing stays the same. Each month, it seems there is some new, different, horrible or terrible headline, sometimes good, and not a lot of good over the last 2 years. But the freight market, as a consequence, has been so sharply volatile, which means really the intermediary is more valuable than ever because of these relationships and because of the technology that we use to innovate. And so one thing I would, and we've talked about this, you guys, the freight is coming at us still. And I don't know how much longer that will occur, right? We have inflation now above 7.5%. People are still buying because they have had the means. They've been sitting on, a bunch of stimulus checks or sitting on cash because they haven't been traveling or what have you. Eventually, people are going to be concerned and have to preserve it, particularly if it costs them $75 to fill up their car, or as you've been seeing, commodity prices, particularly corn and grain, has going up. That has a ripple impact on the consumer. And so freight will not always be at the elevated highs that it is. And so that's sort of why you need to have an intermediary, and you need TIA to professionalize you so you can deal with both the highs and the lows.
Mm-hmm.
So your members right now, Anne, are they sitting here in this freight market where it's still serving them pretty well and waiting for that cliff to eventually come? Is there any kind of sentiment or kind of worry around your members right now that they're saying, you know what, like we're preparing for a steep drop off here sometime soon?
Well, it depends on who you ask. I will say that there are some who are eternal optimists who think that this won't slow down until 2023 or 2024, and that, or if ever. Yeah. And then there's some who are eternal pessimists who are thinking, well, you know what? If inflation continues out as it goes, we're going to be in a really bad recession. So I happen to think I'm not an eternal optimist or a pessimist. I'm somewhere in the middle. I think realistically, because of the freight, we still have this demand. It will continue for a while. I don't think it will continue past the end of this year.
I think it continues for a while, and I think a lot of it, the severity of it, a lot of the potential severity, I should say, or is tied up in the housing market, right? If there is some sort of bubble there that bursts, boy, it's going to get tough, because people use their houses and have been as ATM machines when things like this happen, right? And we've seen this once before, and that particular segment can cause a big issue. Are you seeing a lot of change in the types yet, or in the types of shipments and size of shipments through your members, or hearing anything about the shift in types of freights when we go from being locked down to now you can travel a little bit and do these things, because it's completely different commodities. It doesn't mean all shipments just stop. They start going to different places, right? I mean, resorts start getting more shipments and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think a great example is a shift from just food to grocery stores to food service. Mm-hmm. So some of our members who are in the refrigerated space or in the food service space are seeing that there's a little bit more shift in their ratio. As you recall, and we've talked about this, in the dark days of the beginning of the pandemic, there was zero food service because there were no restaurants serving food, and there were no country clubs or cruises or hotels or none of the typical places that would have food service. Now we are slightly seeing that tick upwards. And so, is that going to sustain itself? We hope so. We hope that this is the end of the pandemic shutdowns. Our country has decided to open up, thankfully, and we will continue to hope that stays the course.
So, Anne, let's shift gears a little bit. You were the lead speaker for our event here yesterday at FreightWaves, but as we look forward to the beginning of April, we've got the TIA annual conference coming up in San Diego, first meeting in 2 years for you guys, and I'm sure that the excitement's kind of really palpable right now from myself, because I get to be there with y'all. I'm really excited about that. Can you talk to us a little bit about the conference, what you're looking forward to the most?
Well, Kaylee, first of all, we're excited to have you. So thank you for coming. We appreciate it. Well, here's the thing. We had planned for 1,200. We had hoped for 1,200. And listen, 6 weeks ago, I don't know if we were going to get there, but I'm happy to announce that we now do indeed have 1,200 people attending. And why is that? Because, well, of all we've experienced over the last 2 years, first of all, we haven't been together. Second of all, the freight is coming at you. And again, we have the luxury, if you're new in the space, to kind of not need the education because you're getting as much freight as you possibly can. But that's not always going to be the case. So if you want to have a sustained success in your business, and if you want to professionalize your employees, then really you need to be around the best in the industry. Mm-hmm. So we have 1,200 of those, 76 exhibitors, 5+ networking events. We've got golf outings. I mean, what else do you need?
I don't know. Maybe live music. I don't know. But you're right, and I think it is the pent up demand to get out and see old friends is certainly one of them, and you can't discount that. The networking is absolutely tremendous, and those friendships build knowledge and information sharing. That's the other part of it, though, is that knowledge and information sharing, especially going into what is really a very uncertain time. What is post-COVID going to look like? And having those face-to-face collaborations, there's a little bit more discussion over a drink or on a golf course or at a networking event than there is on a Zoom call. a little bit personality, you break down a little bit, you talk a little bit more openly about what things are going on, and that information is just incredibly valuable.
Yeah, and I know that you guys feel it too, that there's just no replacement for a live event. So, we're excited about it. We hear from our members, and I'm sure you hear from your folks too. They care about the capacity crisis. They care about recruitment and retention of talent. They care about what innovation looks like, what technology looks like for the future, and they care about automation. And thankfully, we have multiple sessions on all of those topics, because that, to me, is how do you distinguish yourself in the future? How do you make sure that your business is going to succeed? Well, you really got to learn. I know we get sick of school and you feel like, I'm done with that, but we have to be lifetime learners in this industry because it is so volatile.
Absolutely.
100%. I'm excited to be there and to learn from everybody in attendance as well. And thanks for joining us as always, and we'll catch up with you at the conference.
Thanks, guys. Can't wait to see you, Kaylee.
I know. All right, we're going to toss it over to the wall once again. We've got our last shipper update of the day from Anthony Smith.